right, let's dive in today. We're going deep on this one, the rise of femocracy, how women took over the world. Have you heard of this one?
Oh yeah, Connie Riker's book. It's causing quite a stir.
Yeah, and I think our listeners are going to be really into this one. I think it's going to change how we look at things. It's kind of like a deep dive on steroids.
It's definitely a challenge to how we typically think about history and power dynamics.
Exactly. So right away, Riker jumps into this whole concept of femocracy. Like, what if the world really was run by women? And she argues that it's not just a hypothetical. She's saying there's this hidden history of matriarchal societies that have existed all throughout time.
You know, it really is remarkable how she uses these historical examples to kind of break down this idea that male dominance has always been the norm. Like, we've just always accepted that as the truth, right?
Totally. And it just makes you wonder, like, how much have we been missing?
Exactly. Like, she talks about the matriarchy in ancient China. These women were in charge for centuries, crafting laws, shaping institutions. You can still see their impact today.
That's what got me. Hundreds of years. It wasn't just a fluke. These women fought hard for their power, and they held on to it. And they created this thriving society. You know, it makes you think, what did they understand that we've forgotten?
Right. And it wasn't just about power for power's sake. Riker argues that many of these societies were built on principles of cooperation, sustainability, values that are really resonant with a lot of feminist ideals today.
It's like she's showing us a different way of organizing society, not based on dominance and competition, but on collaboration, mutual respect.
Yeah.
Like, what if that was our starting point instead of patriarchy?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought experiment, you know? And Riker gives us all these amazing examples to kind of fuel our imaginations. Like, think about the Amazons of Dahomey. This incredible all-female army warriors and rulers completely flips the script on traditional gender roles.
I know, right? Talk about girl power. These women were fierce. They were protecting and leading their people. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about history and about what women are capable of.
Absolutely. It challenges that ingrained notion that women are somehow inherently weaker or less capable in those kind of roles.
For sure. It's like how much of history has been rewritten or just completely erased because it didn't fit this patriarchal narrative.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point Riker's making. She's saying, look, we need to re-examine history with a critical eye, question what we've been taught, and acknowledge all the incredible contributions of women that have been ignored.
It's time to rewrite the story. And she doesn't just stop at ancient societies. She goes on to highlight all these incredible women throughout history who defied the odds and achieved amazing things, proving that femocracy isn't just some far-fetched concept.
She moves from these ancient examples to look at individual female leaders who navigated and often completely subverted those patriarchal systems.
Yeah, give us some examples.
Like Queen Boudica, for instance. She led a revolt against Roman invaders in Britain.
Talk about a badass.
Yeah.
She was a warrior queen, fought alongside her daughters to protect her land and her people. It's such a powerful image. It shatters that stereotype of women as passive and submissive.
Exactly. And then you have Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, a master of strategy and political maneuvering.
Cleopatra was incredible. She ruled Egypt for over 2 decades. Think about that. During a time of massive upheaval, she held on to power and she wielded it effectively in a world dominated by men.
And then there's Joan of Arc, the French teenager, who led an army against the English during the 100 Years' War.
I mean, come on. A teenage girl leading men into battle. It's almost unbelievable. It shows you the incredible potential for female leadership that's so often suppressed.
Exactly. And Riker uses these historical figures, these stories, to build this really powerful case for femocracy as a viable and potentially even a superior form of governance.
And she brings it all the way to the present day, right?
She does, with examples of modern female leaders who are redefining what leadership looks like in the 21st century.
And that's what makes this book so relevant, right?
Yeah.
She's not just dwelling on the past, she's connecting those historical threads to the present and showing how women are continuing to break barriers and shape the world.
Yes, exactly. Like Jacinda Ardern, for example. Her leadership style has been so widely praised. And Kamala Harris, the first female vice president of the United States.
It's so inspiring to see women in these positions of power, using their platforms to advocate for change and paving the way for future generations.
It's important to point out that their leadership styles are often very different from those traditional, often masculine models of leadership.
In what way?
Well, they tend to prioritize collaboration, empathy, communication.
Qualities that haven't always been valued in leadership roles, unfortunately.
Right. But they're proving that those qualities are not only valuable, they're essential for effective leadership, especially in today's complex world.
It's like they're rewriting the rules of the game. And I, for one, am here for it.
Yeah.
But let's be real. There's still a long way to go when it comes to gender equality.
Absolutely. And Riker doesn't shy away from that. In fact, a big part of her book is devoted to examining the feminist movement and its impact on modern society.
Yeah, she dives into the different waves of feminism, from the fight for suffrage to the modern movements for reproductive rights and LGBTQ plus equality.
It's really interesting to see how these movements have built upon each other.
Each one pushing the boundaries a little further.
Exactly. And Riker does such a great job of highlighting these key milestones and explaining why they matter. Like the fight for women's suffrage, that was a pivotal moment.
I mean, gaining the right to vote, that gave women a voice in the political process, allowed them to finally advocate for their own interests.
It was a huge step towards recognizing women as equal citizens.
And then you have Roe v. Wade, a landmark decision that affirmed a woman's right to make decisions about her own body and her own reproductive health.
A major victory for reproductive rights and women's bodily autonomy.
Huge. But, as Riker points out, these victories are often met with backlash and resistance, which shows you just how much work still needs to be done.
Yeah, and she doesn't just gloss over those challenges. She talks about the ongoing battle for the Equal Rights Amendment, which aims to guarantee equal legal rights for all Americans, regardless of sex.
It's mind-boggling that we're still fighting for something so basic in the 21st century.
It shows how deeply entrenched these inequalities are. And then, of course, you have the #MeToo movement, which really forced society to confront the pervasiveness of sexual harassment and assault.
It was such a powerful moment. Survivors speaking out, demanding accountability, holding powerful individuals and institutions responsible for their actions.
It was a cultural reckoning, for sure. It brought to light the systemic nature of sexual violence and sparked a global conversation about consent, power dynamics, and the need for change.
Yeah, it was a watershed moment. But the fight for a culture where women feel safe and respected is far from over.
But it's an ongoing struggle, and it's not just about legal equality.
It's about addressing the wage gap, challenging gender stereotypes, and dismantling of the systems that perpetuate inequality.
It's about creating a world where women are not only equal under the law, but are truly valued and empowered in every aspect of their lives.
And I think that's what makes Riker's book so important. She connects all these seemingly disparate issues, showing how they're all part of this larger fight for femocracy.
Yes, she weaves together history, politics, culture, and personal experiences to create a really compelling and nuanced understanding of the challenges and triumphs of this movement.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Historical matriarchies, powerful female leaders, the feminist movement, and the ongoing challenges that women face. But trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Riker goes even deeper, exploring concepts like the double burden, the sacrifice syllogism, the insidious ways in which patriarchy infiltrates every aspect of our lives.
And those are the topics we'll be unpacking in the next part of our deep dive.
So stay tuned, because it's about to get even more fascinating.
All right, so picking up where we left off with Connie Riker's The Rise of Femocracy, we've kind of just scratched the surface of this whole hidden history of female power and the ongoing fight for equality, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is, and now we're going to kind of dive into some of the thornier issues that Riker really tackles head on.
Okay, I'm ready to get a little uncomfortable here, because I think we all know real change rarely happens in comfort zones.
Right, and Riker definitely doesn't shy away from those complex and sometimes even controversial topics, the ones that people often just kind of brush aside.
Exactly. So where do we even begin with that?
Well, she dives right into this concept of cultural Marxism.
Okay, now that's a loaded term for sure. It gets thrown around a lot, and
Yeah.
often in a very negative way.
It does. It's often misunderstood, misrepresented, especially in today's political climate.
So what's Riker's take on it? How does she even connect that to femocracy?
Well, she frames cultural Marxism as a way to understand how these societal norms and power structures, especially those related to gender, can be challenged and transformed.
Okay, so she's not talking about like a communist revolution or anything like that.
Right, not in that traditional sense.
Yeah.
No, her focus is really on how these ideas can be applied to feminist thought.
So it's more about analyzing and dismantling systems of oppression.
Exactly, like patriarchy, for example.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So how does she apply these ideas in a practical way?
Well, she highlights the work of some really influential feminist thinkers, like Angela Davis, for instance,
Oh yeah, Ansel Davis.
an icon.
She applied Marxist theory to the struggles facing women, especially black women.
Right. It's about recognizing that these systems of oppression, they don't exist in isolation, right? They're all interconnected.
Exactly. Race, class, gender. They all intersect and reinforce each other.
Okay, so culture Marxism. Got it. What else?
Riker also delves into Judith Butler's work, Her theories on gender performativity. Okay, that one always kind of throws me for a loop. Can we break that down a bit?
Sure. Basically, Butler argues that gender isn't something we're born with, it's something we perform.
It's a social construct.
Exactly. It's created and reinforced through our actions, behaviors, and the expectations that society places on us.
So it's not about denying biological differences between men and women. It's more about recognizing that gender is a fluid concept.
Yes, and that those societal expectations and roles can be incredibly limiting and even harmful.
It's like we're all playing characters in this big play of gender, but what if we want to rewrite the script?
And that's what Riker is advocating for. She's saying, let's question these rigid gender roles. Let's create a society where everyone has the freedom to express their gender identity in authentic and fulfilling ways.
This is heavy stuff, but it's so important to unpack these ideas. I mean, how do they connect to this larger vision of Femocracy?
Well, Riker's point is that by understanding these systems of power, how they operate, we can start to dismantle them. We can create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connections here. So we've talked about cultural Marxism, gender performativity. What about the wage gap? I mean, that's an issue that impacts women's lives every single day.
Absolutely. And it's a persistent problem. Despite all the progress that's been made in other areas, women are still paid significantly less than men for doing the same work.
It's infuriating, especially when you consider, how much women contribute to the economy.
And it's not just about fairness, it's about economic justice. Riker tells this story of Lily Ledbetter, this woman who worked for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company for almost 20 years.
Oh, almost 20 years.
Before she discovered that she was being paid less than her male colleagues, consistently.
That's just blatant discrimination. Did she do anything about it?
She did. She filed a lawsuit, which actually went all the way to the Supreme Court.
No way. What happened?
Her case sparked a national conversation about equal pay, and it eventually led to the passage of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act in 2009.
Wow. That's amazing that she was able to make such a difference. But the fight for equal pay obviously isn't over, right?
No, it's not. The wage gap is still very real. Riker points to all these complex factors that contribute to it, like occupational segregation, discrimination, and then there's the undervaluing of work that's traditionally done by women.
Right. It's like caregiving and teaching are seen as women's work, so they're not valued as highly as, say, engineering or finance.
Exactly. So it's not just about passing laws, it's about changing societal attitudes and structure.
It's about valuing women's work, period, regardless of what that work is.
Absolutely. And then speaking of societal attitudes, Riker also dives into the hashtag #MeToo movement, which has been such a force for change in recent years.
Yeah, the hashtag #MeToo movement. It's been incredible to witness this wave of solidarity, the courage of survivors who have come forward to share their stories. It's like this dam is broken.
It has been a turning point. Riker acknowledges both the triumphs and the backlash that the movement has faced, and she really emphasizes how important it is to believe survivors and to create a culture where women feel safe speaking out.
Because for too long, these issues have been silenced. Women have been shamed, blamed, told to just keep quiet.
Right, and Riker delves into some of the legal challenges surrounding these cases, pointing out the systemic biases that often make it so difficult for survivors to get justice.
It's heartbreaking how often these cases are dismissed or downplayed. The legal system needs a serious overhaul.
It does. Riker argues that true justice goes beyond just the legal system. It's about creating a culture where sexual violence is simply not tolerated, where survivors are supported and perpetrators are held accountable.
It's about shifting the blame from the victim to the perpetrator.
Yes, creating a world where women feel safe and respected. And that shift requires a fundamental change in attitudes and beliefs. We have to challenge rape culture, dismantle the systems that perpetuate this violence, and create a culture of consent and respect.
Okay, so we're talking about these big systemic issues, but Riker also talks about the everyday realities that women face, right? Like the double burden and the sacrifice syllogism.
She does, and those are concepts that really resonate with so many women who are trying to juggle, their work lives and their personal lives.
Absolutely. It's exhausting.
So the double burden refers to the fact that women often end up doing the majority of both paid work outside the home and unpaid work inside the home, like childcare, housework.
Right. It's like having two full-time jobs, one that pays and one that doesn't.
Yeah.
But both are equally demanding.
Exactly. And that double burden can have a huge impact on women's careers, their health, their well-being.
And then there's the sacrifice syllogism. What is that exactly?
It's this idea that women are expected to prioritize family over career, even if it means sacrificing their own ambitions and dreams.
Like you can have it all, but not at the same time.
Right, and Riker challenges that. She says it's entirely possible for women to have both a fulfilling career and a happy family life. We don't have to choose.
We need a society that supports women in having both, rather than forcing them to choose.
Exactly. She shares the story of Sarah, a successful attorney who is struggling to balance her demanding job with being a mom. And it's a story that so many women can relate to, right?
Oh, absolutely. The guilt, the pressure, feeling constantly pulled in a million different directions.
Riker uses Sarah's story to highlight the need for change. We need to shift societal expectations, start sharing caregiving responsibilities more equally, and valuing women's unpaid work.
Okay, so we're talking about changing expectations within families. But what about the challenges women face in the workplace, especially in certain fields?
Yeah, Riker dives into that too, specifically the underrepresentation of women in STEM fields. She talks about the pink ghetto and the glass cliff.
Okay, break those down for me. What do those terms even mean?
So the pink ghetto refers to this tendency for women in STEM fields to be concentrated in lower paying, less prestigious roles, even when they have the same qualifications as men.
It's like there's this invisible barrier that prevents them from advancing.
Exactly. And then there's the glass cliff, which is this phenomenon where women are often promoted to leadership positions in times of crisis when the chances of success are low.
So they're set up to fail.
Right. And then if they do fail, it just reinforces those stereotypes about women's leadership abilities.
Ugh, it's so frustrating. But haven't there been women who have broken through those barriers?
Absolutely. Think about Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, Angela Merkel.
Powerful women who defied the odds and became incredibly successful leaders.
Exactly. Riker's point is that we need to create more equitable opportunities for women in all fields. And that means addressing those underlying biases and stereotypes.
It's about recognizing the incredible potential that women have to offer and creating pathways for them to succeed.
And it's not just about fairness. Diversity and inclusion are essential for progress and innovation. We need everyone's voices at the table.
Okay, so we talked about the wage gap, the hashtag #MeToo movement, the challenges women face in STEM. What other areas does Riker explore?
Well, she doesn't stop there. She also dives into topics like body image and the pressure women face to conform to unrealistic beauty standards. She talks about the male gaze and the need to reclaim our bodies as our own.
Yes. It's about body positivity and self-acceptance, rejecting this notion that women's worth is tied to their appearance.
Exactly. She also challenges those societal expectations around motherhood. The sacrifice syllogism we talked about earlier, the idea that women have to give up their careers to be good mothers.
Right, like we can't possibly have both. She's saying we need to redefine motherhood on our own terms.
Exactly. And she also talks about the often invisible labor of motherhood, all the unpaid work that women do. We need to start valuing that work, both within families and in society as a whole.
And then there's the menstrual taboo. Why is it that we still can't talk openly about periods in the 21st century?
It's ridiculous, right? Riker challenges that stigma. She says we need to have open and honest conversations about women's bodies and experiences, break down those taboos.
It's about normalizing these conversations, making sure women have access to the information and resources they need to make informed decisions about their health and well-being.
And of course, she addresses the issue of sexual violence. She talks about rape culture, victim blaming, and the failures of the justice system.
We need to hold perpetrators accountable, support survivors, and create a world where this kind of violence is simply unacceptable.
Exactly. It's about believing survivors, challenging those harmful myths, and dismantling the systems that allow this to continue.
It's about creating a world where women feel safe and empowered, where their voices are heard and justice is served.
And Riker also acknowledges that the fight for gender equality is a global one. She talks about the challenges and successes of women in the global south, recognizing that women's experiences are diverse and complex.
Right, feminism isn't just a Western concept, it's a global movement.
And she emphasizes the importance of solidarity among women, recognizing that we're stronger together. We need to support each other, work together to achieve these common goals.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Riker's book is really a call to action. It's about recognizing our shared struggles and working together to create a more just and equitable world for all women.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from cultural Marxism to the wage gap to the menstrual taboo. It's clear that Riker's vision for Femocracy is about so much more than just women being in charge. It's about a fundamental shift in power dynamics and societal structures.
Exactly. It's about creating a world where everyone, regardless of gender, can thrive.
And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore what that future might look like and how we can actually get there.
I'm excited to dig into that.
Okay, so we're back, and I am ready to hear about this future, this Femocracy future that Connie Riker lays out. I mean, it sounds amazing, but is it really possible? Can we actually get there from here?
Well, Riker is definitely optimistic. She really believes that a future where Femocracy is not just an idea but a reality is within our reach.
Okay, but how? I mean, what does that even look like? And what do we need to do to make it happen?
She's got a roadmap. And it's not just about women taking over, right? It's about creating a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Yeah, that's important. So what's step one?
Well, she argues that legal reforms are absolutely essential. We need laws that guarantee equal rights and opportunities for women across the board. But she's also very clear that true equality, it goes way beyond just legal framework.
So it's not enough to just change the laws.
No, it's about changing hearts and minds, too. It's about dismantling those deeply ingrained patriarchal structures that really permeate every aspect of our lives, from the workplace to the family, even to our own internalized beliefs.
Oh, okay, that's a tall order. So how do we even begin to do that?
Education is a big part of it. Knowledge is power, right? So the more we learn about the history of gender inequality, the systems that perpetuate it, the better equipped we are to challenge those systems.
Right, we can't fight what we don't understand.
Exactly. And then there's activism. Riker really encourages women to speak out, to organize, to mobilize, to demand change. The feminist movement has always been driven by those who refuse to accept the status quo, those who are willing to fight for a better world.
And one of the most powerful tools we have is the female vote.
Absolutely. Riker sees that as a key driver of social and political change. We have the power to elect leaders who will champion our issues, who will fight for gender equality.
And to hold those leaders accountable.
Exactly. Our votes matter. We need to use them strategically and collectively to make a difference.
I'm feeling fired up.
What else?
This is a big one. Solidarity Riker really emphasizes how important it is for women to support each other.
Yeah, there's that saying, united we stand, divided we fall. Exactly. We're stronger together. We need to break down those barriers that have historically divided us and really work together to achieve our common goals.
I love that. So it sounds like Riker's vision for the future is pretty radical. I mean, it's a complete transformation of society as we know it.
It is. It's a big vision. But, she's also realistic. She knows there will be challenges, setbacks along the way. Dismantling patriarchy isn't going to be easy.
Of course not. But she seems to believe it's possible, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
She's very clear about that. And she encourages her readers to be persistent, to never give up hope, to never stop believing that a better world is possible.
That's so important, that sense of hope, because it can feel overwhelming sometimes, Like, how can we possibly change something so deeply rooted in our culture?
I know, but every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. And those victories add up over time.
And those small steps can lead to big changes.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's about pacing ourselves, but never losing sight of the finish line.
Exactly. Riker's book is really both a celebration of how far we've come and a call to action for the work that still needs to be done. It's about acknowledging the challenges, but refusing to be defeated by them.
This has been an incredible conversation, truly. I mean, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to new perspectives, new possibilities.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's been a privilege to explore these ideas with you.
And to all our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired and want to delve deeper into this whole concept of femocracy, definitely check out Connie Riker's book, The Rise of Femocracy, How Women Took Over the World.
It's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. We highly recommend it.
And that's it for our deep dive today. Thank you all for joining us. And remember, keep learning, keep questioning, keep pushing for a better world. Until next time.